Here's a new business opportunity: is dronepreneurs. I could become a dronepreneur. Yeah, your trusted drone services provider. Under that's a bunch of YouTube videos, how to start a drone business in 2025. From hobby to 70K drone business. This one mistake kills most drone businesses. Yeah. I don't know, man. Right now, you know, look, I've been on LinkedIn now just looking for jobs for weeks now, and buying myself a drone and renting it out to local companies who need drones sounds just about as good a business opportunity as anything else right now. Yeah, the new infomercial is that YouTube ad that pops up in the middle of whatever you're watching on YouTube. And if you don't click skip as soon as it'll let you, you know, it'll play for like 5 minutes. These commercials are really long. I mean, 5 minutes. Sometimes, you know, I just let one play the other day and it went for like 20 minutes. And it was an ad. This guy standing in the middle of a field with like a little, you know, remote control, and he's like, "Let me drop a new business idea on you." And just this like little drone just flies into frame. And apparently, like, according to all these drone evangelists, and there's a lot of them online, it's the perfect time to get into it. It's a good business. I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't a good business. All these people selling you packages on how you can learn how to take that drone somebody got you for your birthday and, you know, turn it into a cash machine, make some money with it. And they said, you know, and you better do it now because this market's going to get pretty oversaturated very soon. So you want to get into it at the right time. Get yourself a drone. Take it out there, start calling up all these local businesses. I'm sorry, excuse me, businesses. And, you know, it reminded me, like, you know, years ago, I worked for a park, and we had something like 15,000 acres, and we wanted a drone shot. It was like around the time that drones were really starting to become in vogue, especially like drones with the little cameras that you would put on them, these 4K cameras, and you would, you know, fly it over a place, and you would get what you used to have to hire, like a helicopter and a camera crew to film. You would get that for an absolute fraction of the cost. And so we thought that it might be really good to hire somebody with a drone to come in, hire a dronepreneur, and hire them to come in and take flight and get us some nice flyover shots of the park. And before we could even finish that sentence, before we could even finish that thought in the meeting, somebody was on his laptop computer and just like, I think it was the maintenance guy, and he just pulled up a little drone on Amazon. He's like, you know, hey, we could get one of these things for like $500. Like, camera included, like damn straight camera included. And so we just bought one. In 2 days we had our shot. So was this like 15 years ago? Yeah, unless they know something new now that we didn't know back then. I would say the train has long left the station on dronepreneur enterprise, I think. And speaking of not learning lessons, this is the Midnight Citizen Show. I'm your host, Mike Booty. Welcome to the show here late at night. And, yeah, another, fruitless week in the, classified section of the internet. You know, LinkedIn here. My God. Oh, I don't even know why I try anymore. Well, it's because I need a job. I need work. I need to live. Oh my God. You know, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think this is my third week saying it again, actually, is that LinkedIn is just a big scam market. It really is. It's just like any other kind of social media platform. There may be some nuggets of worthiness on here, but most of it is just, I mean, I suppose it's just like you used to look at the classified, you know, ads in the newspaper looking for work, and most of it would be a bunch of garbage. But, yeah, you go into LinkedIn and it is all just marketing. It really is. It's there's some job postings on here. Some of them is, you know, some of it's legitimate, but most of it is just advertising. And it's a lot of it is also just ghost jobs. You know, just these jobs on here that do not exist. And you know, like this one right here, for instance. You know, this is a adjunct faculty. So I have a job alert for adjunct faculty because that's what I am right now. I'm an adjunct English instructor at the university here in town. And so what I've got a contract right now for September. I haven't signed it yet because I'm it's not due. I don't have to sign it for another couple of weeks, but just in case something else comes along, because I am looking for a bit of a permanent job right now, because being an adjunct faculty is, like I enjoy doing it. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy teaching college, but it's not like necessarily the most stable job. I mean, you're not getting benefits, and, every semester it's really up in the air if you're going to be able to teach at all. And, you know, I found this out over Christmas when I was all signed up. I had signed to teach English for another semester at the community college, and just got an email and just said, like, we couldn't enroll your class for the spring. So I'm sorry, we'll see you in the fall. So just like that, I lost, you know, 2 classes and a certain amount of money, not a lot of money, but it would have been enough, especially putting it together with the adjunct position I had at the university. And then the adjunct position at the university, one of those classes fall through, so suddenly I'm down to only teaching 2 classes. And the community college stays empty, but then the university calls and they're like, we're going to give you another class. So it's like this every semester. It's just, you never know really until like the week before classes begin, how much money you're going to be making, how much work you're going to be getting. So it's like a very, you know, it's just an unstable way to make a living. It really is. And you're not supposed to make a living at it. Like most adjunct faculty are just, they're holding over for something else, for like a full-time teaching position or something else, like me, for instance. I'm looking for a full-time. I would like to teach college full-time. I would, if I can find a job that will have me. And also thinking about going into, you know, getting my PhD as well. That would be nice. And which applications are due in December. So until I hand in my PhD application for a program in December, I'm just perhaps just totally content with just doing adjunct faculty work. And so I'm looking for something in the summer to hold me over until the fall when, you know, I get to teach again. So I've just been looking on LinkedIn for adjunct faculty positions. And ideally like remote as well. Like they could be remote for colleges and things like that. But yeah, this one came up though. This is a perfect example of what I believe is a ghost job or a scam. I think it's just trying to market you a program or whatever. It's not doing a very good job, but adjunct faculty 2 for a master's degree, meaning I guess you have to have a master's degree in order to do it. United States, 1 week ago, over 100 people clicked apply, which is not uncommon. But when you look below that, the salary, $4,650 a year, remote, part-time, yeah, 100 people with master's degrees are clicking $4,600 a year. That's understandable, I suppose. That's about the average contract salary for like an adjunct employee. But you look further down about this job. It requires a master's, as I said, and then you go down and it's like the next obvious thing that you're looking for is the requirements, other requirements for the job, because the job is not very clear. Like, okay, so it's an adjunct position, but like, what am I teaching? So you look at qualifications and competencies, educational background, master's degree from a regionally accredited institution or higher. That makes sense. Professional experience, a minimum of 4 years of school leadership experience and at least 2 to 3 years as a principal required. So all in all, at least 7 years of, so that right there is, okay, this is a bullshit job. For one, no one who's ever served as a high school principal is going to sign up with a job as an adjunct faculty part-time for $4,700 a year. Like most school principals, you know, even on the lower end make about $80,000 a year. Maybe lower than that for especially for like, you know, Title I schools and things like that. But I mean, it's a pretty high paying job being a school leader or an administrator, somebody like that, you know, being like a Principal Rooney or a dean of students. But the other thing that is just like, what is that most principals have PhDs. They don't have master's degrees. They get doctorates in education. And yeah, the fact that over 100 people clicked apply for this job, I don't think so. I don't think so. I really don't. And, you know, and even if 100 people did apply, like I started the application process for this just because I was like, whatever. I was really genuinely curious about this organization and what they are, what they do. And, it's a organization called New Leaders, something like New Leaders Academy. And so what they do is they bring people in who have leadership experience at the, you know, in schools, like school principals. And they, I suppose, teach people who are training to be school principals or something like that, which is like those people who are training to be school principals would just be like in a doctorate program. But I'm assuming that if over 100 people truly are applying for this job, they're just people who are just easily applying by sending in their resumes and not doing any other work beyond that, not writing cover letters, not doing any work whatsoever to receive the job. So I'm guessing that's probably just what that is. But yeah. But this, you know, it's just the textbook ghost job. I don't think it exists. And what I think is probably happening here is that this company, New Leaders, let's like look them up for a second. Oh God. Yeah. It's a private company. So it's not a, you know, it's not an institution which is given, but you know, it's a private company, and I guess they're hiring school principals. Maybe you would like do it as a side hustle, because even, I mean, $80,000, you know, salary to be a school principal sounds like a lot to me, but I guess, you know, you get used to a certain level of income, you have a family, you have a mortgage. I guess you have to make maybe some extra money, but I mean, it's not too far off, I suppose. But yeah, just looking it up on Glassdoor, it has like 3.5 stars, like out of 5. A lot of the complaints are about like, you know, from people just like, hang on, I'm looking it up. I looked it up earlier. Yeah, 3.2 out of 5 stars. Could use more staff and organization. That's a con. A pro is that it's a great company, handles challenges well. Toxic work environment. The CEO and executive team are cutthroat and backstabbing. They cut staff to bare bones and still expected growth and results. Most of the executive team has no real business experience, and it shows. So it just sounds like it's like it's a company that is, I mean, no better than those people who are, you know, selling you like dronepreneur packages. And I think what they're trying to do is they're just trying to get a bunch of applicants with master's degrees to apply for them, to show like, look at us, we're very prestigious. Look at all these people with advanced degrees who are applying to us. So I think that's probably what it is. They're using LinkedIn to leverage essentially, I believe, their you know, their credibility. I think that's probably what's going on there. So here's one that's actually local that I found earlier this week, and podcast studio manager and editor. And this one is actually local. It's here in Birmingham. There's apparently a podcast studio here in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. You can manage this podcast and I guess edit the podcast that they make, and you get $5,500 a month for doing that. Oh my God. $5,500 a month for managing a podcast studio. I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, again, like having, and I know this was a really long time ago, but like having a major, you know, degree, like my major when I was in my BA program years ago was in communications, and I was intending initially to work in a news studio. And like 20 years ago when I got out of college, you did not get paid a lot of money anywhere in production, in news, unless you were like very senior. And especially like if you were an editor, if you managed the news studio or anything like that, you were not getting $5,500 a month. I know, again, this is a long time ago, and these days I just like, this is a small what seems like a company that I've never heard of, that's local, and that's a lot of money to give you. Again, I know maybe this doesn't sound like a lot of money to some of you all who have money. I don't know. But yeah, I thought maybe I could apply for this job, because it's like, I do a podcast. I sort of know where wires go and things like that. But I looked at the qualifications, media production experience, 5+ years of experience in video production, podcasting, audio editing, and managing recording studios. Technical proficiency, skilled in podcast recording equipment, sound engineering, video editing, live streaming, creative and leadership skills, project management and collaboration, portfolio and industry knowledge. I must present a portfolio of previous work and have experience with podcast distribution platforms. See, I can do that, and I have somewhat a portfolio that's outside of the show. I really don't want to give a potential employer my podcast. I guess I could. I don't know. Maybe I have just a low opinion on my own show. But I mean, I do have, I guess I have like 15 years, right, of podcast experience, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe I will apply for this job, but I also really don't want to manage anything right now. I don't want to like manage a podcast studio. I don't know. It's very cold in those places. I don't know. I think I'm just... Do I want a job right now? I don't know. I really don't know. I sort of like just what I'm doing. You know, see, like time right now is just is one of those things. It's like when I had a full-time job and I was like going to work every day and I was working like 10 hours and then coming home and grading papers at night. This is when I was teaching high school. I just wanted to be able to have time and like just work a job that gave me enough to like survive. And you know, we live in the kind of world today, you know, we have like an economy that's very much built on side hustles where you don't just have to work one job, and you can go out and get in your car and you can like deliver food and give people rides places, and you can make a decent living off of that. And that's really how I've been surviving for the past 3 years. I don't know how I've done it. I guess I'm better at managing money than I feel like I am sometimes, but the huge benefit I've gotten from this is the fact that I've been able to finally realize this dream of just actually having time to do the things that I want to do, to, you know, just like, you know, sort of seize the moment and, be able to like focus on things that I enjoy. But it's getting to that point now where it's like, you know, I've done the math and I've crunched the numbers, and, when my contract is up in a couple of weeks, I really am not, unless I have something else lined up, I'm really not going to have any other choice, any other way of like making money than getting in my car and driving. And, you know, and I started delivering food like right before the pandemic when I was still teaching, and I started doing that side hustle, not necessarily as a means, like the money really wasn't that big of a deal to me. I mean, it was kind of cool to be able to supplement my income, but more than anything else, I just have always loved working for my car, being in my car, being like my own boss, driving around, being able to like get a lot of thinking done. And I've always enjoyed that. And when I first started doing it, it's like, that's why I started doing it. But now it's it's getting very, very dangerously close to that point where that is my way of making money. And it really is like a 1-to-1 ratio, right? For every dollar that I make, I have to drive about a mile. And so that's not good. That's not sustainable. So I need something else. And I suppose. And there are definitely jobs that I've applied to over the last few weeks. Some of them through LinkedIn, others just by looking around, because I'm just not getting anywhere on LinkedIn. I mean, it's all AI. It's like I'll send in a resume, and then a couple of days later, I'll get like an AI response back that like one little word that I had on my resume just didn't fit something in their search algorithm for a candidate. So it's just a very impersonal experience. So I started like looking around just local businesses, local places that I could see myself working, that I could help, that I had something to offer. Right. And so there are definitely places that I've applied that, I would like to work for. And even though I have a fiduciary obligation to myself and to my wife and to my pets to take a job, any job that comes along, I just am one of these people that I'm not really able to like participate very well in a job unless I truly want it, I think. And I hate that I'm like that, but I also kind of like that I'm like that. So, I don't know. And I think that that's why I didn't apply for this, podcast studio manager and editor the other day. Cause I just, I don't think I want that job. Cause like, this is what I enjoy doing. I enjoy doing podcasting by myself without anybody telling me like, I get the feeling that that job would be a lot of devaluing more than it already is the idea of doing a podcast, right? I mean, like, how did radio phase out? Why does nobody listen to radio anymore? It's not because of podcasts. People don't listen to radio anymore just because there's a bunch of other ways to listen to music and people talking and everything. Like, people don't listen to radio anymore because it sucks, because it's been devalued, because over the course of about 20 to 30 years, like, little decisions got made by people, and then the imitators of those people, these executives, as well as, like, I don't want to hold them just accountable, but also, like, hack DJs and all the people who were trying to imitate Rush Limbaugh and all the people who were trying to imitate Howard Stern and Mark and Brian and all those guys. It got to the point where it just was not anything at all about what made it exciting to listen to a live radio show anymore. So people just stopped listening. And, stopped listening to satellite radio, which was supposed to be the solution to terrestrial radio. People stopped listening to satellite radio because they betrayed their principles, and they started like putting on ads. And 20 years later, I'm still getting like emails begging me to come back to satellite radio, being like, we have Howard Stern. Right? They just haven't just reinvented themselves or like evolved at all, and they've devolved. And so that's what I feel like. I don't want to be part of that. I enjoy podcasts. I think it's like a great thing, and it has become significantly devalued over the years, not just because everybody now has one, but everybody thinks that they have to have one, right? If they own a business, they have to have a podcast. They have to, get their name out there, and then they do the podcast for a couple of weeks and nobody listens to it, and they don't make any money from it, so they just shut it down. I don't know. I don't want to be a part of that. So anyway, is what I'm saying here tonight. Yeah, so I did have a job though. I had a job via Zoom interview. And it was a local job. It was an on-site job. No remote work. Although some of it may be remote. I mean, it's a writing job, so like I can no doubt probably work some from my house, but and it was a job I applied to that I genuinely I think I want. I do. If I get the job, I will definitely take it. Not just because it does come with a salary and benefits and everything, but yeah, just the only thing I had to apply or interview over Zoom. And I'm not blaming Zoom or anything. I just don't think I did very well in the interview. And I genuinely hope that they don't consider my application based solely on my interview. I really don't. That was my first job interview. In almost 9 years. The last time I applied for a job was the job that I got when I to teach high school. And that job interview, that was the toughest one I ever had, because like my interview was going in and actually teaching an entire class of students in front of the principal. That was nerve-wracking, but also at the same time, like a very true way to interview for a job, a very democratic way, because the students responded to me. So that was good. I think that's what got me the job, is the fact that they just actually, I got them to participate and all that without having to bribe them or anything. But yeah, just like, interviewing over Zoom, being asked all these questions, just not really feeling like you're doing a good job, because, I'm one of those people that I feed off of energy from people around me. And I think like what you would call probably a classic introvert. In that just like I feed wholly off of other people's, cues. And really have a very difficult time functioning without being able to like just be in the same room with somebody else and, seeing how they're responding to the things that I'm saying. And I know it's a bit of a contradiction in terms, because I am a teacher, and like my job is public speaking, and just I have no problem whatsoever going in and like talking to a room full of like 30 students with confidence, and whether and being able to do a lecture or a lesson, teach them something, despite the fact that they're all just sitting there completely limp at their desks, yawning and glancing down at their cell phones, and just being able to push past that. I can do that. I used to not be able to do that very well when I first started teaching. It really got to me, but it's something I've just become numb to over the years. And do realize that like even if a kid's not looking at you, it doesn't mean they're not paying attention. So, but again, it's out of my comfort zone though, to sit there in a job interview on Zoom and, just have to talk with confidence, like about yourself, and just walking that fine line between being confident, not being overconfident, not bragging, but also telling about all the great things you do and how you're qualified for the job. I was like a nervous wreck. And just like, again, that classic introvert thing that we do is after you get out of an interaction with somebody, you spend the rest of the day, and in my case, like the rest of the week, thinking about it and mulling it over. And like, what did I say? Did I really say that? Right. And I can't remember how she responded. Like, what did she say? Did her eyebrows raise when I answered that question she asked me? And, God dang, man, it was tough, but it's over. It's in God's hands now, I guess. So that's something that's like really left over from my days as a Christian. Is when you really want something, or you really want something to happen, it used to be really like a very settling thing. You used to be able to just pray. Like I pray. And it took the load off of you a little bit. Like I could say it's in God's hands, but I can actually ask him. It's like, and that's a very obvious fallacy, right? Because you're thinking like there's this God up there in the world, and I watch the news every day and I see all the suffering and the heartache in the world. Do I really think that he's going to care about me getting this job and getting a 401k? being able to retire someday. You know, like poor little, I don't know. But it made you feel a little bit better, right? And that is one thing I really do miss about, you know, giving up God. It's, when I was a teenager, is that little nice relief thing. And it's so much so that, like, I still prayed for years afterwards. And to God, and even, like, you know, I said that standard Christian sign off, like, in Jesus' name I pray, right? Because you couldn't pray directly to God. You had to, like, pray through Jesus. Like, Jesus had to give you a letter of introduction to God. That was, like, the whole idea of saying, in Jesus' name I pray. Right. And yeah, I really did suffer this, like, existential moment on Monday when I had this job interview. This was Monday. Of, like, I really want to pray right now. And, you know, because years after I gave up God when I was a teenager, I was still praying, even though I didn't really believe. It just felt like a habit. It felt natural and it felt good. But just one day I just completely said, like, I just need to stop this. You know, this is like an OCD thing now. Right. But I really did, you know, I still, all these years later, still have these moments where I just want to pray and ask God that I don't believe in to help me. You know, this kind of thing happens, like, every time a loved one of mine gets on a plane or takes a long trip. You know, I felt this a lot last year when my dog Izzy was going through surgery and she had cancer, and we were on edge that entire year about whether or not she was going to make it. And eventually she did succumb to it in November. But that was tough. And, like, again, like, when she finally did pass away, my natural inclination would be should I have prayed? Right. And you still have that, like, lingering guilt. Like, is God punishing me for not praying to him, for not coming to him? And then this is the thing the thing that it has always been, the immediate thought that you have after that is, F that. No. What a jerk. Like, he's gonna, like, he's punishing me for not, like, begging him. No, you know what? I can do without it. Fine. If he punishes me by not giving me this job just because I didn't come to him and ask him, like, then he can have it. Fine. Right. And then I feel liberated. I'm like, if I'm not relying on him for anything, then, you know, that's an okay thing. All right. Yeah. But still, I really did want to pray. You know, I think that we all do have a God, right? Not to get into this, like, theological discussion at midnight, but I don't know. That's also kind of the best time, right? Not necessarily like Sunday morning at like 8 a.m., but, like, you know, Saturday at midnight, right? Let's get into it. You know, what is God? I don't know. He's like this governor on you, this thing that just, like, controls this, it's like this energy that motivates you to move, right? And I had this, like, epiphany this week. Like, I actually had a religious epiphany. And I was standing in my kitchen at the microwave, and I was about to, I had this microwave dinner, this 4-cheese ravioli, and I was spinning it over to look at the cooking directions on it. And I saw, like, I could put it in the microwave for like 3 minutes and then, you know, stir it up a little bit, put it back in for another 2, and then I could be eating in like 5.5 minutes. Okay. So I started to do that, but then I noticed there was another set of instructions to the left. And it was, they were instructions to, for the oven. And, you can put it in the oven for 50 minutes, right? And so I started to think, like, what is the difference? Like, it's going to taste the same. Yeah, it may cook thoroughly through in the oven, but right, you put it in the microwave and you can like have it right now. And if it doesn't cook thoroughly through, if it's still like a little cold or something like that, if like the ricotta cheese is still like a little frozen inside of it, whatever processed ricotta cheese is, you just put it back in the microwave for another 30 seconds. I don't know. So, what's the difference there? And I know that they give the people who don't have microwaves the option, right, to still buy their product because they can just put it in the oven. Like a lot of microwave dinners are not like this. Like Hot Pockets is very discriminatory toward ovens. Like they really do insist that you use the microwave, right? Like they don't give you any directions for the oven, right? Not that I'm aware of, because I made Hot Pockets the other night after I had this like epiphany followed very quickly thereafter with religious anxiety. Because I was looking there and I was suddenly having this like existential crisis, this spiritual come to Jesus, whatever Jesus is in this case, of like, do I put it in the microwave or do I actually put it in the oven? Like if I put it in the microwave, I can be eating in 5 minutes, but if I put it in the oven, I can actually have like all this extra time to sort of like sit there and like anticipate how good this dinner is going to be. And I could like meditate and ruminate on it, right? And so like it was at this moment that I really did realize that like, even though I gave up the idea of God many years ago, I still have this concept of God. And I have all these years, throughout all these years, like throughout my entire life, considered myself, I suppose, like a cynical or a skeptical agnostic, I suppose. I don't know. Do they have like a word for that? Like an actual name? Is that I believe that maybe like, I think like having a God is like an inherent natural part of us. I think we all do believe in something. Like I said, like God is just really another name for a governor or some kind of like an energy that guides us through our days and helps us like sort through the chaos and have like this guiding set of principles, right, that motivates us to move. And so I thought that like, if God is not this like monotheistic, just like gray-haired dude sitting up in the clouds like I believed he was like when I was a kid, then I think like my God is probably like time, right? I think that that's what it is. Like my religion is time. Subscribing to time is something that actually really does govern and motivate me. I am constantly thinking about like my time, because really time is the only thing that I am absolutely sure of. And I think we're all sure of. It's really all that we have. It's something that will end for us all someday. We know this. We know this for certain, that time will end for us. We will die, right? And so the idea that like I really do live every single second of my life being motivated by time, the way that spiritual people spend every second of their lives being motivated by some kind of other God, or thinking about the vessel to reach that God. So in the case of like Christianity, like it's Jesus, like Jesus is the vessel, the conduit that brings you to God, that, as I said, gives God that letter of introduction, that you're his son, that you're his follower, you're one of his flock, right? So yeah, no, I was like standing there the other night and I was like looking at this and thinking about the idea that like for the next hour or so, I could just be anticipating having this pleasurable experience of eating food, or I could just like go ahead and just like eat it now, like it's a chore, and just like get on with my day. I don't know. And so I was thinking in that moment that like, what should I do? It was this deep, almost like, experience that I had never really, even though I had like seen this, I'd noticed this before, that like this microwave dinner does have microwave instructions as well as oven instructions. I hadn't really noticed it before. And I think what it really came down to is like, this was on my mind because of, I think the White Lotus this week, the White Lotus season 3 got me thinking about the idea of, time as like a kind of religion, right? Yeah. I know that it wasn't very good. I know. See, I've begun to suspect that the White Lotus, season 3 was not very good around like the 3rd or 4th episode or so, but I didn't read reviews. I didn't want to read that. I don't want to read like reviews for a show that's not over yet. You want to give the show like the benefit of the doubt. And the White Lotus is indeed a good show. It's like, the show that I watched, when it first came on a few years ago. And my wife and I just really got into it. And they only do a season like every 2 years or so. And the first 2 seasons are absolutely fantastic. I think they're flawless as far as like television storytelling goes. And written and directed by Mike White, who is, a writer I've always really admired ever since I was like a teenager. And, he was one of the head writers for Freaks and Geeks, which is just one of the best television shows of all time, easily. And so he's just got this like real acerbic sense of humor and this really interesting way of like writing characters. The White Lotus is just like a culmination of everything that he's ever done. It's really funny. It's really dramatic. It's really tense. And so every season you're watching just, the White Lotus for the gorgeous locations that it's shot in and actors that you've always liked that are usually in the background that are what you would call, I suppose, character actors who are now getting like starring roles and being able to like just be really good and have great dialogue and just great moments of confrontation and revelation, I guess. And like I said, just the first 2 seasons were just so good. And then this 3rd season just like dragged. It wasn't the fact that it was like nothing happened on every episode. Things did happen and there were good performances and there were great moments and scenes. But there was always something to watch, but it just felt like from like the 3rd episode on, it just felt like filler. Like every scene was literally just there to move the plot along, that you weren't really hanging out with the characters and just spending time with them the way that you felt like you were in seasons 1 and 2. And, it did feel like it just was there. There just wasn't a lot there. And I think it's just because maybe Mike White is now, produced a show that initially nobody was really looking for or asking for, but then they really liked it. So now he has to do a new one every 2 years. Right. And apparently like it's been announced there's going to be a season 4, which is like, take a break a little bit, but it also doesn't really make much sense. I know that there's a certain level of, there's a certain suspension of disbelief that you bring to a show like the White Lotus, which is like very heightened and, pretty insane, but the idea that like people would keep going back, or that a resort, like a 5-star vacation resort like the White Lotus that has branches in all these different locations around the world, the fact that they would still be open after 3 consecutive years of deaths and murders is a little bit hard to believe. It's a hard pill to swallow. I really did believe from the very first episode that the last shot of the season was going to be just somebody putting up like a for sale sign or like a closed for renovations sign in front of the White Lotus in Thailand or something like that. I don't know. But, it just it just felt like everything that happened in this season was just very very slow and very plodding, and like it was just like Mike White was forced to write it and to make it, and like by contract or something like that. But I don't know, apparently not. Like he's defended everything that every creative decision he's put into the show. I have a hard time believing it. And yeah, there's been like a lot of gossip come out, you know, from the cast that like they weren't getting along very well, especially like the Walton Goggins and the actress who played his girlfriend on the show. Like somebody noticed this week, oh, they've unfriended each other on Instagram, right? Or they're not tagging each other in each other's photos. So there must be like some tension there. So there's like all these people who are really trying to like get to the bottom of why the White Lotus season 3 was not nearly as good as the other 2 seasons, like really trying to figure out some kind of a narrative. Why was this so bad? Were they just too busy fighting to make good television? And I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it was just like, I don't know. I watched it. I just saw like a writer who was burned out on his vision. And was also probably way hotter because Thailand is way more sweltier and more humid than Hawaii and Italy, you know, the locations of the first 2 seasons, right? And yeah, also more lawless. I noticed that like the White Lotus, each successive season takes place in a land that is less regulated than the previous one. So like the first season is in Hawaii. There's like one little story of crime going on there. And then the second season is in Italy, and there's these 2 prostitutes who are obviously like they're raiding rooms and they're like stealing people's stuff all throughout the season. And then in this third season, like almost every single character is involved in some level of crime. And that's one of the interesting things that I really thought that they were going to do a lot more of, is that it's set up very early on in the show that, you know, there's all these like old, late middle-aged, retired white guys from America hanging out in Thailand. And it's a character says early on, like when people come to Thailand, they're usually trying to run from something or they're hiding out from something. And so that's the idea, is that it's just a very lawless land. And they ultimately really don't do a whole lot with that storyline, or with that idea, that concept, that theme, right? But the one really great storyline that was fantastic, and the reason I watched the show every week, I just really wanted to see how it resolved, was the girls' trip. So like there's 3 characters on the show, played by Michelle Monaghan, Leslie Bibb, and Carrie Coon. They play these characters, Jacqueline, Kate, and Lori, respectively. And their whole thing is that they've known there's these 3 girls who have known each other since they were little kids. They grew up together, and then of course they split up. They went separate ways. Jacqueline became like a famous actress in Hollywood, like, because one of them in these reunion movies always has to be a famous actress. It's a trope. And I was really surprised because, like, you know, Mike White usually does not write into tropes, but he wrote into some big tropes in this season. But I won't get into that. But yeah, Jacqueline is a famous actress, and then Kate is like I guess pejoratively you would call her like a trad wife, I guess. You know, just this you know, married woman in Texas who's very happy to support her husband and go to his country club functions with him. And she's she supports Donald Trump. She admits that in one episode, but she's like, let's not talk about politics right now. She's great. And then Lori, who's played by Carrie Coon, who's like the standard, once again, like very tropish, but she does it very well. Career woman who lives in New York, and she's a lawyer, and she's a divorced mother. And so they're all in Thailand and they haven't seen each other in many years. And just like any of us who have had friends for a very long time and we grow up together and we see how each other, diverge in opposite directions, and we get, jealousies emerge and tensions and everything. And then we don't see these friends for a while. And then we come together with them and we forget everything. And we just have a good time for about 20 seconds. Right. And so throughout, the whole season, it was so much fun to just see them love each other on the first episode. And then on the second episode, they start breaking up into groups of two and cutting the other out and just trading off insults with each other and trash talk and gossip and speaking in a really low voice. Like, I know, right? She's just like, ugh. And like holding the wine and right in one hand, the phone in the other. And it's just simultaneously hilarious, but also really tense and just really horrific. And my wife was really just like, Jessica was just really watching it like all balled up. It's like, just, this is how women talk about each other. And it's awful. It's just like, they're just designed to compete. That's what they do. It's like, they just can't help but compete with each other. And I get it. And I feel terrible because it's like, obviously there's a lot of competition among men. I mean, that's what men are known for, is competing, but I don't know. It's like when I get together with my friends and we've known each other for years and years, obviously we've had our differences over the years and we may fight every once in a while, but generally it's like when we get together, it's just like, you want to just hang out and watch like, you want to watch Tremors tonight or whatever. Right. I'll say that with like one group of friends. The other group of friends will be like, you want to play like, Mario Party or something? I don't know. Yeah, let's do that. It's not a big deal at all. It's like, yeah, I'll go to the store and get some beer. We'll order a pizza or whatever. But like a lot of times it is true. It's like, when women get together, and I don't think I'm stereotyping at all, but I do notice this. It's like, it has to be kind of an event, right? There has to be arrangements made and all that. And that's, to a degree, very unfair, right? But that's just the way that society has arranged itself. And the White Lotus is very much a social satire. And this is a great satire that Mike White has identified in the White Lotus to pick out, is just this tension, this natural hard-boiled tension that exists between middle-aged women who have known each other their entire lives. And in season 3, it obviously is like right there from the beginning, but it slowly boils to the surface, and passive aggression turns into just like full-on aggression and accusing and all that. So, and the main thing that happens that really is like, you find out the dynamic between these women is that Kate, as I said, like the Texas, Trump supporter trad wife, is usually in the middle. She refuses to take a side between either one of them. Jacqueline is the one who is very loose with her morals and, very impulsive. And Lori is the much more conservative, uptight one. And so Lori and Jacqueline are constantly fighting with, Kate in the middle. And, the tension reaches a boiling point when Jacqueline sleeps with a guy that Lori wants to sleep with. And then Lori, in order to get back at Jacqueline, just goes out and has sex with the guy's friend and all that. And things come to a head. It's a very funny scene when, after they have sex, the guy who's like a Russian expatriate hits Lori up for money. And like basically just pulls the Spanish prisoner scheme, like right there. It's like, I need money from you to get my mother out of Russia. So it backfires on her. But the last episode, there's just a fantastic scene. I mean, the story between them wraps up beautifully when they finally decide on their last night together in Thailand to just like bury the hatchet, because they know they're about to go home and they're not going to see each other for a very long time. And Lori, as I said, like played really well by Carrie Coons, just this actress I've loved for a really long time. She was on Fargo season 3. She was the sheriff at in Fargo season 3. She just has this like wonderful moment where she just breaks down and she starts crying, and she's not mad at them for the way that they've taken sides against her, she's like expressing gratitude. She's kind of saying like, I've always wondered like what my religion is. Like, I don't believe in God. And for years, like I thought that my religion was work, and I would put everything into work, and then it was love, and I put all my energy into love, and that's what motivated me. But now that I'm sitting here with you guys, she says, it's like, I realize that, I'm like paraphrasing here, but she says like, my religion is time. The idea that like, when I'm here with you guys, it's like time has collapsed, and I have just been distracted all these years. And now I kind of see like exactly what I am, because y'all are the only ones in the world that sort of know who I am and like what I'm capable of and what I get distracted by. So, this got me thinking just this week. I was thinking the whole time, it's like, am I like that? I don't know. Maybe so, possibly. Right. Because this, my entire life, I've never really thought of myself as subscribing to any serious, like any sort of religion. I've never quite been a spiritual person. In a sense, I just really am quite existential. And I just believe that like what we have now is what we have. Right. And there's really nothing after this. But that in a way, and that's what the show got me thinking about, and I have thought about it before, but it articulated it quite well, is that, time is a sort of religion. In the fact that like a lot of us tend to wake up every day and, blissfully ignore, our own mortality. And not only that, but also the fact that that we are animals, right? That we are just like living, breathing chunks of flesh, who will die someday. And we distract ourselves from that by, jumping into things that make time sort of irrelevant in a way, right? Whether that be our jobs, or just like looking at our phones, or just finding ways to completely ignore the inevitable. And, I have a hard time doing this. I have a hard time, and again, I think this is like why I'm so obsessed with finding some kind of a job, that I really want to do, because it's like, that is all I have. I don't want to throw myself into a job that I'm not going to enjoy, but just be there forever. Right. And, and just like let time go by. It's like, I value my time, that I very clearly know that this is all I have. And I want to wake up in the morning with a sense that I am going in and I'm doing the best thing that I possibly can with my time that day. So, I don't know, the show sort of just got me thinking about that, this week. It's just that like last little monologue that the Carrie Coon character Lori has on the show is just talking about like how, really, it's like, it's amazing all of these things in our world that really do distract us from what really is the most, important religion of all, that we all share. But a lot of us tend to ignore, is just the fact of like ticking time of things just taking us away from that. Right. I think so. So yeah, that's what I took from the White Lotus this week. Oh my God. But there were so many so many just missed opportunities on that show. I really thought that boat was going to blow up at the end. Didn't you? If you haven't seen the White Lotus, you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to spoil it. If you want to, it's we're checking out, check out, watch it from the beginning if you haven't seen it yet. So the White Lotus. Yeah. Yeah. It's just one of these things like, some days, like I wake up, I don't know about you, but I wake up every day and I just like, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. A lot of the things that we normally think of as like distracting us just seem irrelevant. You know, like money seems irrelevant, for instance. You know, that is obviously something that motivates us all, right? Is money. Sex, of course, obviously is another thing that motivates us, right? To get up in the morning. No pun intended, or maybe so. I don't know. It's too late for me to really dwell on my intentions in my language, but I think like you know, we just wake up some days and like we just know exactly that this is what we're supposed to be doing, and at that point you have really wholly reconciled yourself with this with time, right? And you know, like this week I was like driving around, and it was like it had been a cold weekend, a very rainy weekend, a very damp and stormy weekend, but then suddenly like the sun was out, the clouds were shining. It was like you know, the clouds were out, the clouds were gone, the sun was shining, and my window was down, right? And I was listening to my book on white supremacist, and I was like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be right now, you know. And other days you just feel depressed. No, I was listening to this book. I want to clarify, by the way. I was listening to this book this week about white supremacist. I wasn't being indoctrinated or anything like that. No, it was, I have been really on a bit of a history tour lately of the 1970s through the early 1990s. Just really, very interested in how we sort of, I suppose, got here. What we see today is just like very normal behavior from people was once considered extremism. And I suppose some people like me still consider it extremism, but a lot of people don't. And I think just a lot about what we see today, just the rhetoric, and we could call it dog whistling, whatever, is really a very calculated routine to soften up the language, but not the ideas of the far authoritarian right. And so, you know, recently I was talking a couple weeks ago that I was reading this history book about called When the Clock Broke, which is about, you know, the con men, like politicians and businessmen and all that of like the 80s and 90s, you know, the people like, you know, Rush Limbaugh, you know, who Ross Perot, you know, these people who Pat Buchanan, who gained a certain level of power by being able to manipulate their audiences into acting against their own self-interest, you know, by sort of harnessing, for instance, like just this thing that many Americans like consider their birthright, which is like a political party. And you know, making it about things that are completely not about like actual, like their own self-interest, like their own economic interest, but making it about like religion and making it about, you know, social unrest and all that. So, I finished that book this week. I've been reading, this book called The Order. It wasn't originally called The Order. They made a movie about this that called The Order last year that was adapted from this book that I've been reading that was published in 1989. It was initially called Silent Brotherhood. Let me get the full. It's a nonfiction book, so of course it has like a colon, and it has a you know. Yeah, so the Silent Brotherhood was the initial name, was the alternate name for the Order, which was this, you know, group of white supremacists operating out of the Pacific Northwest in the 70s and 80s. And they're the ones who were responsible for killing the DJ Alan Berg. He was a Jewish talk radio DJ who was particularly hostile toward his audience of, bigoted white people, and was the basis for the Eric Bogosian play and then later on the movie Talk Radio. And so this book called The Silent Brotherhood, the chilling inside story of America's violent anti-government militia movement, right, was published in 1990. And what I find so interesting about that publication date is that, again, this book came out really before the most interesting part happened, which was everything after the order broke up or evolved into just this intricate underground network of militias, the people who train the likes of, Timothy McVeigh, for instance, as well as all these Christian factionalist groups, like, the group in Waco, the Branch Davidians, all them, Heaven's Gate, even though that's not really linked to it, but, just really what we saw is the breakup of fascism in the 1940s. It didn't break up. It just splintered off into a lot of hate that spread worldwide. And, just growing up as I did, very naive, in the 1980s and early 1990s, thinking that, all that's over, right? Right? We defeated that guy with the funny mustache, and now everybody's happy, and it seems like we're friends with Russia again. And what you just see is when you have hate manifest itself in such a visible way that it actually has to be pummeled into submission by the rest of the world. It really just goes underground, and that's what happened, following the 1940s. And with America setting its sights on communism, really what that gave the underground bigots a chance to do was to harness something, to make Americans act against their own self-interest, right? And so what I was thinking, what this book makes me think about, what this book, The Order, again, it's the full title is The Silent Brotherhood, the chilling inside story of America's violent anti-government militia movement. What this book makes me think about is influence, and how we are, all of us, right, at a very early age, have this moment where something changes our lives, and we don't have a choice in it. We don't get a say in it. It just hits us. It strikes a particular nerve in our brain that just makes us who we are, right? And for a lot of us, that's pretty innocuous, right? We see Star Wars, for instance, right? And we just love Star Wars for the rest of our lives, no matter how old we are. We love Star Wars, and, or we just love comic books or whatever, right? The Silent Brotherhood, this book is about Robbie Matthews, who, if he had been born a few years later, maybe he would have, gotten into Star Wars. But as it happens, instead of discovering Star Wars, when he was about 8 years old, he discovered a newsletter from the John Birch Society. Right? This was a society organized specifically against communism, but these people were farther right than Joseph McCarthy. So, and they were whack jobs too, people talking about paratrooping into Russia, on their own dime, and doing all these things that Ross Perot eventually organized mercenaries to do. But, these people who just, we don't need the government. We're just going to do it ourselves. We're going to eradicate communism by ourselves, working out of our, old dilapidated school bus, in the tall grass behind our houses. Right. So, Robbie Matthews, at a very early age, living in Arizona, starts reading the John Birch Society, and he becomes obsessed with the idea of clean American living. Right. And he becomes a Mormon for a while, and it's clear from a very early age that like he's just looking for something, some kind of idea. He's got like I think it's like, again, what I was talking about is like this not rejecting the ideas that you grow up with, like the religious ideas, but still being religious or still being spiritual, and you're just looking for that religion that you can adopt yourself to. And so it was very clear from a very early age that like Robbie Matthews was whatever religion he was going to adopt, he was going to be extreme and fanatic about it, the best disciple he could possibly be. So, there's like when he becomes a Mormon, he's like starts being one of these like really annoying little Mormons that just has to tell his parents. He preaches to his parents all the time. And there's a scene in it when he's like a teenager and he gets baptized into the Mormon church, and his parents wake up one night and he's just like standing over their marital bed with like a Bible in his hand preaching to them. Right. So eventually Robbie Matthews gets tired of being a Mormon, and because he thinks that they're all communist or something. And that's the thing. It's like, he does have this like turn, like this almost like Roy Cohn, Joseph McCarthy turn, where you've taken the whole idea of attacking communist, as far as it can go. And then you suddenly like say that like the government is communist. Right. So like Robbie Matthews begins to believe that, the American government is evil in itself. It's already become infiltrated with communism. So now it's up to him and all these other factionalists that he's meeting out in the desert to form militia groups, right? To combat, to take America back, to return it to its, and this is when he starts using the term white Christian heritage that it was founded upon, right? And this is obviously the language of the neo-Nazi movement, the super far right, the authoritarian set, right? And this is language that carries all the way into the 90s and even up to today. This is really almost the first time it really begins to manifest itself in American history. And so this is the early 60s. And so Robbie Matthews is this guy that in order to make peace with his parents, who are very concerned, he sort of says that he gives up all this stuff. He moves out to the desert and founds this group called the Sons of Liberty. And then his parents are like, "You're getting a little too far out there, Robbie." So they bring him home, and then he moves up to the Pacific Northwest, and things are okay for a while, but then he starts meeting a bunch of other like-minded individuals up there. And he founds this group that they don't have a name for it, really, because they believe that name, what they're doing, they know is inherently in the eyes of the communist government illegal, right? And they are these people that believe that, being a traitor is only like a matter of dates, that what they're doing now is like illegal in the eyes of the federal government, but the federal government is evil. So it's like, they're going to take it back, and they're going to be seen as like martyrs or saviors, right, of the white Christian heritage, going all the way back to the Pilgrims, right? So Robbie Matthews and his set, they start like robbing porno shops there and like in Seattle, and then they slowly graduate to robbing banks and counterfeiting money, and then they knock over armored cars, and eventually they graduate into bombing porno shops, and eventually, as I said, like the assassination of Alan Berg, which didn't do anything for their cause, right? Except I suppose martyr it to some people. But again, it's like, what they did is they made free speech look like it was like, something that you could still be killed for, right? So it worked against them more than anything else. But yeah, so anyway, but Robbie Matthews is dead now. He died in 1984. I haven't finished the book yet, but I do believe he was killed in like a standoff with police, because you can only rob so many armored cars and befriend so many. The thing about like neo-Nazis and white supremacists is that a lot of them are pretty stupid, and they're so consumed by their own hate that they do really stupid things, like sign their real names on like guest registration forms and when they're buying handguns and things like that. So it makes it really easy for the authorities to track them down, which is what they did. So, you know, Robbie Matthews, of course, it was like only a matter of time. You know, he was, you know, killed only a few months after they, you know, killed Alan Berg with a, I believe it was like a Tech 9. It was like an automatic handgun or a pistol, you know, that they had bought, in a very traceable way. So, you know, yeah, Robert Matthews, I found a picture of him. There's no interviews, of course, for him, like online, because, you know, he was underground the whole time. So he's not like David Duke, who was in, you know, featured a lot in that book, When the Clock Broke. But he's not like David Duke, who, you know, always was there in front of a camera and a microphone. But yeah, he's here like right now. Like he's just a very like that's what's so tragic about the story is that he was like the first chapter in the book is called All American Boy. He is like this guy that just looks like Opie, right? With he doesn't have red hair or anything, but you know, he's just like this guy who put a lot of emphasis in like physical fitness, didn't smoke, didn't drink. And I think like a lot of people who practice religion to an extreme degree just cannot tolerate anybody who doesn't, you know, who isn't like that, who doesn't do that, right? So he just became very pissed off at the world as, you know, which he saw was just getting fat and lazy, and America was just like letting the communists take them over. And so that's the thing. It's like, and that's the thing that you find happen with like a lot of these people. You know, is that they just ultimately just believe that nobody is better than they are at celebrating God, or, you know, so they just take it upon themselves. They all want to be like the star of the story. They all want to be the martyr. So that's who like Robbie Matthews, right, surrounded himself with, is like these people. You know, there's a picture of him from Wikipedia, and I haven't read the Wikipedia page first because I don't want to spoil the book, but I will say, if you're going to look up Robbie Matthews online, be very careful because, oh my God. Yeah, I found some stuff on him, which was full of like comments like, "I'll see you in Valhalla. Rest in peace, my brother." Yeah, like here's, oh my gosh. So I looked this up. No, this is on stormfront.org. Rest in peace, Robert J. Matthews, you know, so. But yeah, in the book, I don't know if like the, you know, the thing about listening, like I was listening to it on an audiobook. I was driving around all week, like listening to this book, and it's always very dangerous when you buy an audiobook. I guess you can listen to the sample, but you know, the narrator that you get is like, oh my God, I've got to spend the next 20 hours listening to this guy. The narrator does a good job. The narrator is Gibson Fraser, but and I don't know, honestly, if Gibson Fraser intended to do this, but there's a lot of dialogue in the book. The book was written by two journalists who had covered the order throughout the 1980s, and wrote this book in 1990. And there's a lot of dialogue in the book from like Robbie Matthews and like, you know, imagined, what I suppose are imagined interchanges based on eyewitness testimonies from the people who were in jail, the people who were still living, of what Robbie Matthews was like, because of course he was not interviewed for the book. He was dead when they wrote it. But I genuinely wonder if the narrator is intentionally trying to give Robbie Matthews like a voice that is really easy to make fun of. Like in the book, it does say like Robbie Matthews was described as having a very high pitched, almost like nasally, whiny kind of voice. But it's like anytime he talks in the book, it just makes me laugh. Like I've got like an excerpt here from it, you know. Here, Here it is.
Some families still hadn't recovered.
So this is
from
the
mine
narrator
shutdown,
reading right now.
and there was a labor dispute going on at the cement plant. Still, Matthews always couched his discussions in terms of the children. We have to secure a better future for our children, Matthews told Voff one day. It's up to us. The government works against us. The way it taxes middle-class whites into submission, we've got to stand up for our children's rights. I found a church about 3 hours away that preaches good news about the white race.
It's just like every time I hear it, I just imagine Ned Flanders, saying those lines. We have to fight Zog-diddly-og, right? The Zionist diddly-pied government. I don't know. It just sounds so ridiculous. Hi diddly ho, my Aryan brother Reno. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight on the Midnight Citizen show. I want to remind you once again, I am on mikesbonfire.substack.com. And also over at the Overnightscape Underground at onsug, onsug.com. You can join me over there as well. A lot of other great podcast hosts. I was actually interviewed on a podcast this week, by the way. I almost completely forgot to say this. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but I was interviewed by Bob Lament over at Static Radio. Over at staticradio.com. Yeah, Bob Lament is one of the OG podcasters. Like, no kidding. He's been doing his show before podcasting even existed. Yeah, he's been doing his show since, like, it was called Internet Radio. So since 1999, him and Miles Tedell have been doing that show. And this is the second time he's interviewed me. But I found Bob years ago through the Overnightscape Underground Network. And so you can listen to me. We talked for about an hour. We talked about a lot of stuff over the course of that hour, and it's a great conversation. So if you want to go see me being interviewed, you can find it on YouTube, but also over at staticradio.com, and I'll put links to it in the show notes. I will do that indeed. But anyway, but yeah, if you want to check out everything else that I do, please go over to the Substack. Once again, that's mikesbonfire.substack.com. It'd be so great if you left a comment over there. Let me know what you thought about the show. I really hope I don't attract any white supremacists to this, because I don't even know if I'm going to put this guy's name in the show notes. I may even have to go into like the AI transcript, the transcript that Substack generates for me once I upload it to Substack, and take his name out of there and just replace it with Ned Flanders. Ned Flanders, leader of the Order, aka the White Bastion. Until next time, keep your eyes open.